Welcome to Advocating for the Neurodiverse. I am honored to be here and thank Health Advocates Summit for this opportunity. My name is Ashton Nesmith-Kochera and I am the owner of A Patient Advocate LLC. Currently, I work with an independent practice as a board-certified patient advocate and advocate within research and policy as well. I'm a volunteer of National Patient Advocate Foundation. I sit on various boards and committees within patient advocacy organizations and have over a decade of patient advocacy experience as not only a BCPA, but as a patient and caretaker as well. My personal experience with not being properly diagnosed for 25 years, in addition to my educational background, and over 7 years of near daily medical research, led me to finding a passion within patient advocacy, specializing in chronic illness and neurodiversity. I also help oversee a new upcoming practice called Trifecta Health Connections, and I am very honored to be here today because neurodiversity is something close to my heart. It's something I've struggled with ADHD, and I know that if someone here today can walk away and help someone else that is neurodiverse not be so alone or help them gain the resources that they need, that this definitely has served its purpose. So thank you again for having me, Health Advocate Summit, and thank you all for attending. Neurodiversity is a term that has been around for decades that seeks to better define individuals that do not possess society's common pathways in learning, socialism, environmental interactions, and a plethora of other functions that many of us take for granted daily. This term draws attention to the fact that everyone has different abilities and all should be acknowledged for their differences instead of their defects. A main perspective within the neurodiversity community states that everyone has a different mind, a different way of being, further stating that we should not suppress these differences but accept and support them. Examples of diagnoses that are considered neurodivergent are attention deficit hyperactivity disorder known as ADHD or formerly known as ADD, autism spectrum disorder, dyslexia, Tourette syndrome. There's others listed here and others that are on some different lists that are PTSD, complex PTSD, OCD, bipolar, other personality disorders and such, even going into acquired diagnoses. So it should tell you that this is not a rare thing. I want to take note also to the fact that in 2013, controversy started in the neurodiverse community when the DSM-5 was revised and the definition of autism to remove those features that characterize Asperger's syndrome. This led to mass confusion and not all medical professionals getting adequate training. It ultimately led to diagnoses being missed, which can increase depression and anxiety in addition to other complications due to neglect and lack of potential treatments. An entire generation or more have been affected by that. Therefore, it's important to learn how to advocate for the neurodiverse, especially within the complex healthcare system today. Terms to know: neurodiversity, the natural diversity of human brains. Neurodivergent, a person whose brain functioning differs from what is considered normal. Neurodivergence, a broad term that can refer to several different diagnoses or symptoms. Neurotypical, a person whose brain functioning is considered normal. Neurodiverse, a group of people with different types of brains. Neurodiversity paradigm, the philosophy of neurodiversity. Neurodiversity movement, the social justice movement. Person-first language versus identity-first language. Person-first language emphasizes the idea of separation between an individual and their disability. Example: I am a person with autism. Identity-first language emphasizes that disability is an aspect of one's identity that does not need separation. Another example: I am autistic. The neurodiversity movement is something that is actually happening in the present and has been for a few years. It's a social movement that seeks civil rights, equality, and inclusion for everyone regardless of neurocognitive function. What it does is advocate for support and accommodations for the neurodiverse. It's powered by self-advocacy and encourages strength-based perspective. This movement also reframes these so-called anomalies as merely different forms of brain activity. The aim is to ensure that the stigma that is associated with these diagnoses are eradicated to make room for increased self-esteem and resiliency. This book that I pictured here is called Divergent Mind, and it's by Janara Nuremberg. And it's what woke me up to the entire neurodiversity movement, and it is definitely a great resource and book if this is something you want to look into more on your own. I wanted to incorporate a saying about the neurodiversity movement, and I came across this quote and wanted to make sure I had included it. It's by Alex Kimmel in the interview in Typed Words Lab Voices. The quote is, "The acceptance and celebration of those that operate other than what most of the world considers to be normal." The complex connection, neurodiversity and chronic illness. It is known that those with neurodivergent conditions are also more prone to chronic illness. One retrospective study of over 23,000 insurance records found that nearly all medical conditions were significantly more common in adults with autism than everyone else, and that included diabetes, GI disorders, epilepsy, sleep disorders, dyslipidemia, hypertension, and obesity. The second thing here is conditions that are usually uncommon for the neurotypical are still seen more frequently in this population, and those would be depression, anxiety, eating disorders, vision and hearing impairments, osteoporosis, and more. And the last one is LGBTQ plus show a higher prevalence of learning differences than their heterosexual counterparts. This proves true for many neurodivergent people as they go to lengths to mask to fit in with society, especially when not properly diagnosed. The connection between neurodiversity and chronic illness is complex at best, and little attention has been paid to these areas. There are many theories out there, such as the genetics and environment, which may play into this. For example, the Rccx theory, where Dr. Sharon McGlarthy has hypothesized a plausible theory that explains why some chronic conditions go hand in hand with neurodivergence, such as Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, postural orthostatic tachycardia, and mast cell activation syndrome. The Rccx theory explains the co-inheritance of wide range of overlapping chronic medical conditions in individuals and families. It reveals the gene that may give rise to predisposition towards brilliance, gender fluidity, autistic features, stress vulnerability, and the entire spectrum of psychiatric conditions. This is also where LGBTQ can come into play, and different things. I have written a white paper on this back in 2021, and if you are interested in reading that, you can check that out on my link that I have listed here. Prevention and intervention. Prevention. Proper understanding of neurodiverse individuals. There is a high probability that you will encounter neurodiverse people. You may even be part of this population. Late in life diagnoses are more common, especially after an entire generation was not properly diagnosed when the DSM-5 was updated in 2013 to exclude Asperger's. Up until 2 or so years ago, not much awareness had been made. This may or may not be new to you. Regardless, understand this population has been marginalized and unable to realize their full potential because of the lack of understanding prior to now. Intervention, accommodations, and providing health care. First and foremost, recognizing and advocating for this population is critical. I will touch further on advocacy tips shortly. Here I have included a quote that I wrote in a white paper on the intersection of chronic illness and neurodiversity. And this quote is, based on the experience of various psychologists, it has been discovered that patients' perspectives transform after they are made aware of their diagnosis, which leads me to what you can do to help advocate. Finally, I've included some advocacy tips that can be pretty powerful when used. Validation is key. So the first one here, listen with empathy. They have been dismissed long enough. Engage in active listening. Show compassion when they feel frustrated or have a hard time getting words out. Their brains think faster than they can often process. This is very true. I have ADHD, and my brain, you may have noticed during this presentation, is often faster than I can speak. So this may also lead to them taking a bit longer to fully process information. Information overwhelm is also real. Be cautious to cognitive overwhelm. That can become a stressor. The second one, acknowledge their strengths and weaknesses. Neurodivergents thrive at creativity and excel in recognizing patterns and details. When surrounded in the right environment with the proper support and accommodations, they will become empowered by their strengths and thrive. And I also believe that you will probably be impressed when they do so. The third one is accommodations. Accommodate sensory sensitivities, light, sound, smells, for example, and change seating. Use blue light filters, soundproof panels, white noise machines, air purifiers. They can all make a difference. Educational resources and tools is the fourth one. Stay up to date on resources and research. Have resource lists available. Provide additional support and feedback. Number 5, don't assume, ask. Neurodivergent people often struggle with asking for assistance. They do not want to feel stigmatized. Provide safe and open ways for communication. Stress being inclusive and make sure that accommodations are in place to be inclusive. Examples are RSVP forms, feedback opportunities, modified break and work schedules, remote work arrangements. If this gives them more flexibility to perform optimally, then why not? 6, consider collaborating with them. Their skills and insight can be very beneficial to both parties. All right, time for questions. I know this is being recorded, so if you are on the app and you want to send me a message through here, that is great. I will get back to you. If you want to send me an email about this or connecting or anything else, send that to my email address at services@Ashton, ASHTON, BCPA.com, and I will definitely get back to you. If you want more about my story or anything on that end, that is on my website. And there is also the white paper that I spoke about and referenced to a few times in this presentation today. That can be found at www.ashton, ASHTON, BCPA.com. And all that is on there. I appreciate this opportunity for Health Advocacy Summit, for them giving us this platform, educational opportunities, and advocacy, most importantly. So again, thank you, and thank you everyone for attending.